Before a single word was spoken, before the judges even looked up from their desk, the entire theater felt something was different tonight. The lights dimmed just a little longer than usual, the audience leaned forward in their seats, and a quiet tension settled in the room as a lone figure stepped onto the America's Got Talent stage. This was not just another audition. This was one of those moments that people would talk about for years, the kind that leaves an entire crowd completely speechless. If you love emotional performances, unexpected twists, and life-changing moments, make sure you hit subscribe right now, because what you're about to hear will stay with you long after the final note fades. He stood there frozen for a second, blinking against the bright lights, his hands shaking slightly as he introduced himself. His voice was calm, but something about his eyes told a deeper story, one filled with struggle, sacrifice, and hope. The judges smiled politely, the way they always do at the start of an audition, unaware that within minutes, their expressions would completely change. When asked why he came to AGT, he paused, took a breath, and said he wasn't here to win fame, he was here to prove something to himself and to someone who could no longer be in the audience. The room went quiet, and suddenly every single person was listening. As the music began, it wasn't flashy. There were no explosions, no dancers, no dramatic effects. Just a simple melody and a voice that carried more emotion than anyone expected. The first note hit, and you could feel the shift instantly. People stopped whispering. Phones slowly lowered. Judges leaned in. His voice wasn't perfect in a technical sense, but it was honest, raw, and painfully real. Each lyric sounded like it was pulled straight from his life, and by the time he reached the chorus, the audience wasn't just hearing him, they were feeling him. Halfway through the performance, something unexpected happened. The music cut out for a brief moment. A mistake like that could destroy an audition. You could see the panic flash across his face, but instead of stopping, he continued singing without the track. His voice filled the theater, unfiltered and unprotected, and somehow it sounded even more powerful. That unplanned moment became the turning point. What could have been a disaster turned into something unforgettable. The audience began to clap along softly, almost instinctively, as if they were helping carry him through the song. When the final note ended, there was a silence so deep you could hear people holding their breath. No applause, no cheers, just shock. Then, one person stood. Then another. And suddenly the entire theater exploded into a standing ovation. People were crying openly. The judges looked stunned. One of them wiped their eyes before even speaking. This was one of those rare AGT moments where words feel unnecessary, where the emotion says everything. But that was only the beginning of the night. Later, another contestant walked onto the stage, completely different in every way. Younger, nervous, barely making eye contact with the judges. The audience wasn't sure what to expect. When asked about their background, the contestant admitted they had almost turned back at the door, afraid they weren't good enough to be there. That confession alone earned a wave of supportive applause. Then the performance began, and within seconds, the room changed again. This time, it wasn't a song. It was a dance, but not the kind people usually cheer for. It started slow, almost awkward, with movements that seemed too simple, too quiet. Some people in the crowd looked confused. Then the story unfolded. Each movement began to make sense. It wasn't about impressing the judges. It was about telling a story of loss, fear, and resilience. When the music swelled, the dancer collapsed to the floor, and in that moment, you could hear people gasping. It felt invasive, like watching something deeply personal that wasn't meant to be shared. The twist came near the end, when a projection appeared behind the dancer, revealing photos from their real life, moments of joy and moments of heartbreak. The audience realized this wasn't choreography, it was memory. When the final pose hit, no one clapped immediately. They couldn't. The emotion was too heavy. Then the applause came, louder than before, mixed with cheers and cries. One judge stood and said they had seen thousands of auditions, but this one reminded them why the show exists. As the night continued, audition after audition delivered unexpected emotion. A group that looked like they didn't belong on the AGT stage shocked everyone with harmonies so tight they sounded unreal. A performer who joked nervously during their introduction turned out to be hiding a talent that left the judges laughing, crying, and applauding all at once. Each act built on the last, raising the emotional stakes higher and higher. One of the most unforgettable moments came when a contestant brought someone special onto the stage with them. They explained that this person had supported them through years of doubt and rejection. As the performance unfolded, it became clear that this audition was not just about talent, it was about gratitude. Near the end, the contestant turned toward their guest, dedicating the final moment to them. The audience erupted, and even the toughest judge admitted they were completely unprepared for that level of emotion. Then came the audition no one expected to end the night the way it did. A quiet performer, barely saying a word, walked onto the stage carrying nothing but confidence in their eyes. The judges asked a few questions, but the contestant kept answers short. When the act began, it felt almost too simple to compete with what had come before. But slowly, steadily, the performance built into something extraordinary. The kind of moment where the entire room realizes at the same time that they are witnessing something rare. By the final second, the audience was on its feet again, cheering so loud it drowned out the music. The judges didn't even wait for the applause to die down before reacting. One of them slammed their hand on the desk in disbelief. Another shook their head, smiling, saying they had never seen anything like it. And then it happened. The golden buzzer. Gold confetti poured from the ceiling, covering the stage in a storm of light and sound. The contestant dropped to their knees, overwhelmed, as the crowd roared. In that moment, it became clear that these auditions weren't just about winning a competition. They were about being seen, being heard, and being understood. Every performer brought more than talent. They brought their life, their pain, their dreams, and their courage. And for a few minutes on that stage, the entire world listened.